And again, I think, there's people that want to talk about it, but what are we going to turn them into doers? I think we forget sometimes that each generation has challenges that they have to overcome. I went through a very tough round of chemo, one that they wouldn't give anymore. It really did take a toll on my body.
Yeah.
And that was rough. I'm not going to fail to say that. There were days. We have the mental strength to overcome.
Welcome to Innovation Illuminated, a podcast where guest entrepreneurs and experts in their field of business share their experiences and knowledge learned through their journey in the business world. I am your host, Hunter Pirak, and similar to these guests, I am also an entrepreneur. Today, I'm joined by Paul Decker, who was actually one of my professors in college and taught an entrepreneurship program, but currently he's serving as the chair to the Waukesha County Board. Paul and I talked through so many life lessons that he's learned through battling cancer, his career, and serving on the board. He's learned so much and continues to grow through his curiosity. He says that his positive mindset through all of his trials and tribulations really comes from being a curious and really somebody that just wants to continue their learning. We talk about so many topics, whether it's battling cancer to growing within yourself, to people that are young and unsure of what they want to be when they grow up, gaining their passion, finding their purpose, the difference between managers and leaders. We cover so many topics, and this is really a eye-opening and interesting conversation between me and Paul. And I'd like to do more with Paul because he's such a wealth of knowledge, like I said, that it's really interesting to learn through his experiences and his viewpoints of things, because he's always taking note and learning from experiences, what he could have done better, what questions he could have asked. And he really says that asking the right questions is where you grow in life and where it separates people that fail and people that continue to learn. People that fail and give up, I should say, and people that are resilient and continue to learn. Please subscribe to us on Spotify and YouTube, as that's a great way to support the podcast. And please leave a comment on YouTube as who you'd like me to interview and what you're curious to learn from them. I will be reading all the comments. I hope you enjoy this one, and thanks for tuning in to Innovation Illuminated. All right, well, let's start the conversation. I kind of want to start it with going back to your childhood, where you grew up, and kind of a little bit about you growing up.
I grew up in Port Washington, Wisconsin. So,
Okay.
Wisconsin native. Typical, probably a small town. Growing up in the 60s, it was very inviting. As we grew up, we could maneuver around the city, at least at sidewalks. We walked all over, biked all over, had a lot of freedom. I'm the oldest of five. We're all right in a row. Like a lot of boomers at the time, we had friends. We all know each other's friends, all know each other's moms and dads, and it was just that type of growing up. Lots to do as a result of having all those kids. And recreation, we had a pretty good variety. A lot of that we did ourselves. We were very self-starting.
Yeah.
And it was like make a phone call and grab 6 kids and and as we got older, we could get 10 guys and go play football, basketball, whatever wherever we could find a place to play, we did it.
Okay. Yeah, so you guys were a lot of kids your age around you, got to do everything that you wanted, sports, a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were, again, some of the bigger classes for the schools at the time.
Okay.
And we did a lot of recreation, not a lot of, and there was a lot of variety of types of people at the time. Mm-hmm. I rode the school bus. You could ride a school bus with the banker's son. My dad was a bricklayer at the time, so you could. It didn't matter. There was a lot less stratification in society.
Yeah.
And so it was just, who you were as an individual. So that, I think, left a big imprint on me, because being an individual turned out to be one of my big things as an adult, to maintain my individuality, because that's kind of what we had as young people amongst ourselves, and it was part of the challenge is that there was so many of us, both in our families as well as within our neighborhoods that you kids, wow, what's going on here? So we were a handful, I think, for a lot of adults at the time. And then as the 60s went on, and things really changed with music and exploration and all the things going on societally, we didn't avoid that. So I think much to this disdain of our parents, they were like, where is this all going? But we had a lot of freedom, even though school was teaching us certain things amongst ourselves. There's so many of us as a cohort, so we're talking amongst ourselves. So the freedom of thought was very big at the time, and of course, as usual, some of your peers have more access to different information, and they're more than willing to share it with you.
Yeah,
right or wrong, we were learning things not necessarily all in the textbooks.
Yeah. Did you like the 70s, 80s era?
I really enjoyed the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
I guess that was my, late high school, college time.
Yeah.
The music was just fantastic.
It's still so good.
Yeah, and younger people really liked the music. It was well written. You had a lot of singer-songwriters. A lot of it was relevant to the time, and there was still the pop stuff and the goofy stuff. But between the romantic parts, the soul parts, the civil commentary, there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
And the radio stations at the time played it all. There was no, by category.
Yeah.
That was really, I think, very beneficial to us.
Huh.
And I remember that the record companies and Hollywood adults tried stratifying. They would, it was like, what was black music versus, and we didn't care.
Yeah.
Something was a good song, well written. We could dance to it. We had fun with it. That was it.
Yeah, it was all united. Like today, it's all separated or segregated.
Yeah, and it united us, I think, as a generation.
Yeah. That
we could, and still, we could listen to certain music and boom, you're right at that. Which Beatles songs were in 64 and 65 and 66, and when the Stones came along. And, I remember our parents getting so upset about the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. We still talk about that and how that just outraged some of the parents, and that music will never last. And now we look at it, what do you mean it'll never last?
Yeah, it's still going.
And they were all upset about the Beatles. And, within a year, the Stones came along, a lot of other groups that were a lot different and really put a lot of the electric guitar into things. And I think a lot of that was just, again, our ability to find ourselves and our voice. And it definitely, that was the fun of that time.
Yeah.
And of course, in the 60s, we had all the things that people are worried about now. I mean, civil rights, women's rights, cities were burning. You had we had the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
I remember reading a lot of things. Oh, this is the worst. It'll never get worse than this.
Right.
And we fought through it. I think as a generation and the generation just ahead of us, we fought through a lot of those. And we thought we had a lot of those resolved. And I think that's really the disappointing part about today is that, people in the younger generations are still fighting for what we thought we had taken care of.
Right.
The resistance to progress and change has always been very fascinating to me as an individual and as a human observing human and being very cognizant of history. It's just been something we always resist. There's always resistant forces to human progression.
Yeah. I heard something the other day. It was like, if you look back at like our ancestors, they had such a crazy story of resilience. Like people today would never even experience, like we never experienced the hardships that they did.
Exactly.
It's insane. Like the Great Depression, there's so many things that they had to experience that they made it through that we'll never make it through today.
Well, and we will have challenges today, but they had a lot less tools.
Yeah.
I think of where my paternal grandfather grew up on a farm. He was youngest of 17 children, and just to keep that farm going, they had that many children over almost 30 years just to keep the farm in.
Yeah.
But if you were the youngest, you were at the far end when you were growing up away from, they had one big fireplace. There was no central heating. There was no central bathroom. There was, and when people complain today about cold nights, I always think of that going, you could hear the heat go on, a warm house and out of the wind. And it's, you're exactly right. I think we forget sometimes that each generation has challenges that they have to overcome. Right. When I look at the communications in the 60s, and we did all that without, and really could keep in touch with each other and pull whole people, big groups of people together, whether it was in Port Washington or in Wisconsin or Woodstock or anything like that. And we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah. Right.
Or the internet. Right.
Yeah. That's crazy. I was like,
go ahead.
I was like to my parents, like, how did you guys like meet up and stuff when you like started dating? Like, well, we just like call each other or like show up at their house and be like, hey, do you want to hang out type of thing? It's like, what? Today, it's like you sit at home and you FaceTime and you're like, maybe I'll see you like next week. We can just text for now.
Yeah.
So much different.
A friend of mine brought up that, we would get together and again, 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year. And you didn't have car, we couldn't drive at those ages, but phone calls, and it would be just gather people together. And then as you were becoming aware of the other gender, so then we'd get together and have different people would have parties and we had played Twister and all that. So you really got to know people. Yeah. And you always want to, in those days, 7th or 8th and 9th grade, you want to only have Twister with the right girls.
Yeah, right.
But we did all of that. And like you said, meeting up and meeting people was not the problem.
Yeah.
Everything was done in almost a group setting. And I knew very few peers that didn't have other brothers or sisters, so that it was like you were in a constant conversation about what was going on, whether it was your siblings or your friends.
Yeah, and I was just thinking with networking nowadays, like networking is so easy where you can just like reach out to anybody on LinkedIn and stuff. But I don't think people get that. I was talking to this guy, I don't know if you know G's Clippers, Cullen Smith, he's downtown. And he was saying like how people have it so easy today, but they just don't take initiative. Like back then he grew up and he was knocking on doors and his network was just meeting people. And nowadays nobody wants to meet anybody.
Right.
They just want to text them. And it's like, it's so easy, but at the same time, you're not building a network.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we knew there were people that amongst our peer group, it was all the same varieties. So you had shy people, you had people that were a little more reluctant, people didn't grow at the same time, at the same age, didn't mature in the same ways, but yet we all were able to gather and get together and exchange ideas and see things. And I remember we had one when I was in grade school, and all he did was all the reading we had to do, and I went to a Catholic grade school, so we actually had nuns, but he kept reading the dictionary just to keep learning words and how to put them together.
Really?
Yeah, and it was just, he was a very quiet guy. He was a big guy. He was kind of shy, but that was his way of looking at the future. Now, what's he going to need for the rest of his life? I look back at that and I think, wow, that was very smart of it. Yeah. I was lucky. I had somebody when I was in high school, was a reading teacher, and she pulled me aside. I didn't have her in a class or anything, and she made me look up and use it as a sentence, a new word every week. She would just see me in the hallway in between classes. What did you learn this week? Yeah. And she always called me Mr. Decker, and it was, and she was this little reading teacher, and again, I never had her in a class. She just pulled me aside and said, it will help you later on in life. And she was right. Yeah. And the diction, because I didn't have very good diction. Okay. And to enunciate and keep things going, be very cognizant of that. So she helped me, and I had a lot of help from teachers and coaches during that time too. And that was the other thing. We were a little bit more accepting, I think, of all of that too. Yeah. About learning and stuff, you think? Learning and accepting what adults had to say. Didn't say we followed it completely. Oh, okay. Didn't say we believed it all, but we would learn. We would be respectful. Yeah. We would be courteous and take it in and go, okay. And then augment it with what other reading or learning we were doing. Okay, yeah. Because people wasn't just, put it off because you're old, or put it off because I don't believe you. We didn't do that. We really listened, and I think it enhanced our overall learning and adaptation to the world. Right. No, I was just thinking about that. I feel like I've asked my grandpa about like some questions that I have about like his life and stuff, and then I like almost push back off it because I'm like, I feel like I want to learn from the younger generation, which is weird, but I totally get it because
sometimes like we see on social media all these things like this person driving a Lambo or something like that, and we want to be like them.
Right.
But at the same time, maybe they got there through generational wealth and stuff like that. But it's hard, I feel like, as young people in this generation with social media, people are just pushing and pushing and pushing to be the richest person.
Yeah, I don't. There was a little bit of that when we were growing up, not as prevalent as it is now, because most people, I think, there was a pretty robust middle class as a result of coming out of World War II and the factories and the work that was being done. So, as long as you were being had decent food, decent clothing and shelter, it was like, oh well, taking care of the hierarchical needs, and then it was learning. And it was, yes, there were people I knew in college that, take this job because I want to earn as much money. But then there were a lot of us that were just seeking, better lives. And I was in my case, the first generation in terms of getting a bachelor's degree. So I that turned for me that I really enjoyed the learning more than just what am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, I realized that I had a couple of advisors. It was like, you have to realize this is just a beginning. There's a lot to learn. And you're not going to get it all here now. And I think that's, what you're saying is so right. I still at this point, I'm out talking on civics or on other things to sixth graders, for instance. I really relish their questions and want to learn from them as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think age should have anything to do with who you learn from, what you learn, how you learn. I think respecting history is important, but understanding what the times were. We certainly don't expect, those of us that are have learned from it, I wouldn't expect a lot of things to be exactly the same as the 60s.
Right.
Because the circumstances are so different. And the lens of which we look at things are so different.
Right.
And the 70s on up. And I think people now are trying to make value judgments or judging other people. I'm going, you'll regret those, because 10, 20, 30 years from now, the world circumstances, the learning, of course, AI, everything will add to it.
Right.
It'll look ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all going to pivot.
Yeah.
How much of an impact do you think that the schooling system and schooling and teachers in general have on young kids?
Well, I still see a lot at the grade school and even at the high school level, especially those teachers and those people that really respect students and listen. I think listening is probably the more important part of it now from both sides, from all sides. So I can't say there's not both sides, but I see it in this area. I can say in Waukesha County. I do see in other areas that there is not as much, and I think that's maybe quality of teaching, quality of person, and that's a shame. But because again, why you're going to, we don't break down well enough at a younger age of why you're going to school. And then when I also see, which is still exactly the same as it's been for many, many years, for many generations, we are still teaching a lot, in a lot of the same ways, bringing a bunch of children the same age, put them in the group and giving out, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And yet when we see pre-K and kindergarten and even first grade, we see actually more learning going on because there's a little bit more enthusiasm. And I think the teachers play into that, letting the kids be who they are, maybe coloring outside the line. I think that individuality, as I said before, is really important. And we have to learn how to utilize that in education as somebody grows.
I should mention the podcast too, that you were my instructor at one point too, which is exciting for that one entrepreneurship class. I feel like one thing that I liked about your class, but also made me nervous in class, was that it was super hands-on. Like we did a lot of questions. You'd ask for like real life, like relationship to our business. Like, how is this working in your business type of thing? How could this be different in a different business? And it made me like nervous in class getting called out like that. But I feel like it made people be outside the box and really show their uniqueness to approach a problem, which is super unique and cool.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of that is, again, I remember going through training when I was working for Xerox, especially, but even other companies after that, and being in the audience. And it was just, they were doing the same thing we did in college and sometimes in high school. It's all lecture. And it was, again, we were adults, and why aren't you utilizing our experiences, especially those of us that were in sales and on the street?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that it wasn't just me. There were other people. We would talk afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, well, they missed this, they missed that. Well, who did they ask? Why aren't you asking your own people? So I feel that's a big part of learning, and I vowed if I ever got into managing or training, I wouldn't lose that. And I had some good advice along the way that learning, one person said to me, and said it very clearly, very succinctly. And just remember, when you manage other people or train other people or teach or do whatever, they're not all Paul Decker. And that just stayed with me. So how do I find who you are and, what makes Hunter go or what makes anybody go? Then ask those questions, get you involved. I also find that having your involvement in, and like you said, okay, when's he going to call on me or what's going to happen? That keeps your attention.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a thing I learned, how to keep an audience's attention. A lot of that comes from, again, self-reflection. How do I like to be spoken to? I like to be respected. I want to be heard. I love good interchange of ideas. For some people, I do. I talk too fast. I listen too hard, and I think, connect dots and put people on edge. Okay, but let me know about that. Don't just diss me.
Yeah.
Off. Let's talk about that. So I learned how to infuse that in teaching and training, and that was a lot of fun. And also, you realize when you're up in front of a group of people, like a class, why not use all the brains in the room?
Yeah.
You all can learn from each other. So, and as you saw in class, I didn't care younger, older, gender, race. It's like we can all learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I think people were more interested, a little bit more fun. We retained people. I think there was a lot more give and take.
Yeah.
As a result of that. And it got back to what you were talking about. It just was another form of networking, and people didn't realize it.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like that's so much in the world where people don't think that they're networking, but they actually are. How have you kind of implement that into your life? Because I know you have such a big network. It's crazy. I look at your LinkedIn and you have so many connections, and like everybody that, like entrepreneurs that I know are connected with you too. And I'm like, how do they know Paul too?
Well, some of it class, some of it I've been brought in for training. Some of it's met through other people. I'd say first and foremost, as anybody that knows me well will tell you, I like people.
Yeah.
I am, and never will deny it, I am a people person. I do like my quiet time. I like reading and doing all that. But overall, I love engaging with people. I'm disappointed sometimes. I know that people think, well, I talk too much. I do this. But I'm just really inviting you. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, let's
get
go
in the conversation. And I'm trying to get you up to speed to, let's go back and forth on this. And I think a lot of people have, again, lost that ability to really go back and forth on not just politics or societal, but on when you really get in with people that understand. Music is a great one. And, oh, yeah, and back Hendrix did this. And a lot of those are younger friends. So I think my wife, just when she looks at how many of my friends are younger, partly because of energy, partly because of depth, partly because of they want to learn more, and I want to learn more.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is like at the board side is help people ask better questions. Then and I'm trying to train myself to do a better job of that. It's how I did well in sales. Now I have to try to do it well in one-on-ones. Is okay. What you're doing, is ask questions, get a conversation going, because that puts on it. It really helps click more neurons in our brain, more brain connections, and so our breadth and depth then can engage. And that back and forth between two people or a group of people, to me, is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then one of my things as I go forward, going, okay, how can I'm really self-reflecting and going, all right, these are the criticisms. What do I have to do to improve? But more importantly, how do I get more people that want to talk about these things? So I watch what my wife has done. So she's engaging with more people in a lot of ways because socially it's good for her. But secondly, learning Mahjong, learning bridge, learning all these things that will help her. And it's helped her build, I think, stronger, better friendships as a result. But again, it gets down to person-to-person engagement.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, and building relationships is so important because who you surround yourself with is huge, I think.
Yeah. Well, and building relationships, we know that in all age groups, but especially in people that are aging and people over 65, over 70, that if they lose a spouse or they're living alone, any lack of social engagement is almost like they call it another disease.
Really?
It starts hurting their internally as well. Not just their brain, but it causes. They're just starting to do that kind of study, and I was amazed by that. But I think it's knowing your neighbors, getting in and staying involved, and getting out. People just start shrinking from that.
Yeah,
and it really affects their brain capability, verbal capability, and their quality of life.
Mm-hmm. How do you suggest people to get involved with their community and find out about events and stuff like that?
Well, I definitely, the library is always there in most of our communities throughout the state of Wisconsin, throughout the country, I believe. And Waukesha, Jefferson counties, we're all interconnected. But get involved with some type of group in a hobby interest or something that interests you. But you got to help be part of the initiator. You can't just stand back and wait.
Yeah. That's
probably the most important part is what can you do to initiate contact? Talking to a neighbor, sending a note. You're not always going to be 100% effective. You may not get back exactly what you want, but I think the biggest thing in life is trying. Otherwise, why are we here?
Right, yeah.
But I think it happens at all ages, and take opportunities. There are opportunities there. And do whatever you can as you grow older to be less isolated.
Interesting. Yeah. So keep connected with everybody.
Well, and you brought up, people in your generation, I think younger, that the difficulty in networking, if everything is social media, I think there'll be some adjustment that a lot of that will take place over digitally, but it won't replace one-on-one contact. So better use of FaceTime, better use, when we see what's probably coming, Zoom among, why not have a neighbor gathering them, if it's cold or snowy or icy, have a Zoom gathering of neighbors.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yeah, just to replace it a little bit so then you could have some interaction at least.
Yeah, and you could do simple things, exchange stretches, exchange recipes, exchange, what's going on in the world. I know some people tell you don't discuss politics or religion, but personally, I think that does more harm than good. I think being able to have discussions, being able to have respect and decorum and understanding from a different viewpoint is extremely important. One, to human society, but two, to human development.
Yeah,
at all ages.
What would you say? I'm trying to think of like how you'd separate a discussion between an argument, like in politics or religion, because I feel like they go hand in hand, kind of like my grandpa gets so into it on one side, but then he can't see the other side type of thing.
Well, as you probably saw in my class, so I do it by question. So why do you believe that? Why do you think she or he is good? And for me, what I've done is try to really be firm on understanding the difference between facts, feelings, and opinions.
Okay.
I'm a sworn constitutional officer, so I have to respect and defend your ability to have opinions, and I will. But understand that just because you're hearing opinions, regardless of where you're hearing from, whether it's a television, some blog, some website, they're not always. They're more opinions than they are, facts. I think being factually structured is it's boring to a lot of people. But there's, I always utilize economics, utilize history, but the facts are the facts. Now, everybody has an opinion of those, and some of those were definitely opinions of people at that time, whenever in history you're looking at, whether it's 10 years ago, 40 years ago, 400 years ago. But you can look at things and learn to be your own researcher. I think, secondly, the more you are objective, and that means not if you're coming in and well, this is just the way I believe, or the other people are all wrong, or they're all idiots, or one thing, if you want to have a good discussion, no name calling, and try to be understanding of the other and respectful, most importantly, of the other person's perspective, not necessarily what they're saying, but where are they coming from? This is the most difficult part. When I try to talk to people, okay, I talk to everybody as first off as equal and human being. Then when they say something, okay, what's that perspective? Where did they grow up? Where do they live? What's been their life experiences? What have been some of the more pertinent things that have happened in their life? When you're talking to somebody that might be really all, get really emotional about things. Well, I had one, and they were all emotional about crime and what's going on. And I asked them, so were you ever a victim of crime?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just lowers the temperature a bit. And yes, no, yes, I was. Here's what happened. Well, how did it make you feel? And once you start developing that kind of conversation capability and a little bit of empathy, you can have better conversations.
Right. Where would you suggest, or where do you get like a lot of your facts? Because I know some of the news sites just spew their opinions at you.
Yeah, I read, and I always encourage people to read multiple sources of the same event,
topic or event. Okay.
Yeah, it is really always fascinating to me to do that.
Yeah.
I'll read the Wall Street Journal version. I'll read something online of the same event, something from BBC, something from an international standpoint.
Yeah.
It's a world event. And from that, my brain is, okay, you're able to do some discernment. But you don't, and especially because, okay, what's the perspective? Who's writing it? So you start looking at authors, you start looking at background. And again, when it comes to a lot of world events, even state events, the more you can emotionally unattach from them. I'm not emotionally, I think people get so emotionally wrapped up in the things.
Yeah.
And even like what we were talking about later, I can talk about what happened in the 60s and 70s, but I'm not necessarily, as some people close to me have told me, I'm not nostalgic. It's like, oh, I wish. No, it's not at all. I understand what happened, what we did. I was there. What we tried to do. What happened didn't happen at that time. And so now, listening how people interpolate certain things or miscast certain things.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people confuse. Even now, it's kind of amazing because it's your own history, how people don't differentiate between the 60s and the 70s, for one thing. But each year in the 60s was different.
Right.
Was remarkably different. And, the innocence, as you started seeing and people getting more involved, younger people especially getting more involved, it changed a lot of, and again, you have to have that perspective. And it wasn't a matter of, I think what we do is, you're asking a great question. And I've always been of the ilk, and I was taught this when I was younger, in a lot of different ways, but people want to be so judgmental. And I'm thinking, well, that's probably, you're not going to be able to discern a lot of facts if you're judging beforehand, for one thing. And judging is different than, okay, who wrote this? Why did they write it? Being curious is really good. But being so judgmental because somebody doesn't believe like you did or doesn't come from the same background. And throughout history, it's been proven that always leads to some bad circumstances for humans. When one group judges another, or one group says, oh, we're all right, you're all wrong.
Yeah.
That it's tribal. It's been around for as long as humans have existed, and it's always caused all kinds of conflicts.
Yeah.
And interpersonal conflicts, as well as tribal conflicts, as well as expands. It's done more harm than good.
Yeah, and it's all perspective. I'm thinking like, I don't know somebody, and then I meet them, and then my perspective shifts on them. The perspectives like shift all the time, and one person's perspective is different from another person's perspective. So you have to respect both sides and see where they're coming from, and kind of work from a point of empathy where you can like get in their shoes kind of thing.
Exactly. Empathy is a very, very strong and can be a very, very good attribute in terms of really understanding where another person's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But it also doesn't mean that you just capitulate to that. It's if you're not fully believing, it's okay. What's the counter to that?
Mm-hmm.
With different circumstances. So why do they feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
And while I have empathy for some of the suffering you might have been through, was what caused that? Was it an absolute belief system?
Yeah.
When we know as humans, we know as children, we learn and we forget that, and people try to sometimes beat it out, but do harm to children, and to not let them be as curious as we are naturally, and be as why is that? Oh, don't question me, young man.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we had a lot of that when I was young. It was well, that's not yours to question.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Every human, I believe, has an obligation to question. I mean, why are we given this great apparatus, this brain, this, and when we infuse our spirit with it, it's, okay, what the heck is going on and why did this happen? I think, to me, one of the more fascinating things is how in the heck we even survived this long, and then how the world formed or what else is out there, or just allowing for all of that allows our brains to do the work they could really do.
Mm-hmm. Do you think about that a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've always been curious as to, I've loved geography and history, but as I grew older, more questions. I wish I was as curious about math when I was young as I am now.
Okay.
But I'm curious because of not just doing math, but how does it work and why is it, what's the absolute to it? And then why people question it.
Yeah.
Because a meter's a meter, foot is a foot.
Yeah.
And if you're going to lay bricks or build things or construct things, to me, it's kind of interesting. And then when I look at Bluetooth or, okay, how does that work? And what's different? Why do you have to have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's why do you have to have both? And to me, that's always I have a great curiosity about AI, but I also realize that since pretty much as an adult, artificial intelligence has been around us throughout these last 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
We just haven't always acknowledged it as such. And again, the math now is what's enabling algorithms and all that to the AI to speed up and work at a more pace that, okay, this is something we have to work with. But when we first saw robots inside factories, that was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And you knew it was going to change. I thought it was going to change and said so at different presentations, that it was going to change things for the better. Because I remember growing up and then becoming an adult and then becoming that person in a decision-making capacity. And there were people that always questioned, but all you're doing is giving us these brain-numbing jobs, these factory jobs. And then it was, that's not good for humans, that type of thing. And now we can go about and go, well, now we're, there are no, the robots are doing all the brain-numbing, doing the lifting. The quad graphic says robots rather than people lift the different substrates and other things because the weight changes, size changes, and that was hard on the human back. Well, now they're not having as many back injuries, but they had to retrain people to utilize the robots, to utilize the technology. Well, that's what we should be doing. We should be looking as always progressing, that you don't learn one, even if you've learned bricklaying or being an electrician, plumbing, there's always going to be something new. So, and I've seen that in personally in healthcare and medical. I mean, I'm still alive because of certain things now, a couple of things in my body that are brand new technology. Well, okay. To me, that's a fascinating. I want to know all about that and how did they do that and why is biotech different than biomed and all these things. And then more importantly to me is why can't we do a better job of getting our young people in a learning modality to do more with that before they ever leave high school, and get curious before they ever leave grade school.
Yeah.
So that because that'll be that adaptability to live in this world that we're in and that it's coming is going to be so important.
Yeah. Curiosity driving their decisions and leading them to where they want to be in the future.
Well, how do we turn learning into that? That's I have no big answer for it. There's a lot of educators that are well trained for that and are doing the job, and I admire. But I think that we need as a society to look at our entire educational system, our learning system, and do a better job of fusing it all together so that we realize that humans are an ever developmental stage, until we expire.
Yeah. Besides that one person that always asked you for that new word every week, was there a teacher that like really inspired you and drawed curiosity into yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some inspired, some I just look at both in the grade school and in high school, the teachers that said, you'll do Shakespeare, you will talk, I remember none, and you will be a lector. We had the mass that turned around, so we were talking, and they picked lay people out to talk to the masses, and I was shy, didn't want to do that, but I could. I learned, and it took a while for that to become a skill. But yeah, I think there were several. I had at the time a JV football coach, Al Ernest, who turned out to be a great coach and Hall of Fame and all that. But just watching the way he coached versus other coaches, never screaming, not always hollering, always. He was more of a reminder, more of an instructor. And he could make a wry joke when somebody would miss a block or do things in football, or in basketball. It was like, try this, try shooting, try practice. It just to try rather than not. You got to do this, and because in the times in the '60s, it was a lot of the hollering, the screaming, the be a man, and all that. But again, I learned as much from some of that that helped me later on. But the people that inspired me were really the people that were a little less cut from the norm and did things or asked you to do things or pushed you a bit. And I remember being inspired very much by teachers that could share their curiosity with you and help develop it, and that had sense of humor. I think sense of humor is a true distinctive human facet that we don't use enough in learning and exchanging back and forth. I'm guilty of that sometimes, in those most, my wife, I have to realize, okay, you have a sense of humor with other people, got to have one with her, kind of don't always take everything so personally, seriously. And it's tough in a relationship because things are cumulative. I'm still mad about what happened 6 months ago, now we're doing that, and that's really a reaction. It's kind of a childhood thing because that's you remember what Peggy did to you 6 months ago, and who took your earrings or pulled your hair or whatever. But you remember that 2 years later and still take it out on them. So that's it's not very adult. And when we talk about adulting, part of that is okay, can we get over the petty things and really, what am I doing in a one-on-one relationship or a one-in-many relationship? And it gets back to in networking, it's, as I said in the class, networking is not about you. It's about, I look at myself as you saw and said, as a connector. Great. Because the more connections that I have or do or help people with, then I have connections, and things always seem to come back. It is true that what happens comes back to you. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it's short-term, a lot of times it's long-term. You just don't know when it's going to happen. But I can say from personal experience that people do appreciate, and it's a matter of just keep trying, do it with the sense of how do I help somebody else?
Yeah, what goes around comes around.
Yes.
And it sounds like your football leader is more so a leader, or football coach is more so a leader than a manager.
Correct.
What would you say the differentiation between those two are?
Well, I learned a lot in going through athletics as well as teaching, or learning. But then when I went up the ranks as a professional, there's a lot of people that were pretty good to really good managers.
Mm-hmm.
But managers are just trying to take care of what's here right now. How do we manage this process? How do we get this done? What do we have? What's our output today? Well, what do we have to do? How do we make sure that everything's accountable?
Mm-hmm.
So really good managers, and you need that. But leaders are more visionary and more ability to look at things and go, okay, we've got to add this. We can do this. How do we produce over here? And then the other piece to that, to be a good leader, is how can I help you be a better person, a stronger, help your development,
Mm-hmm.
and in such a way that I'm not always worried about how you're going to help me, but how can I help develop you?
Huh.
So that's a leader. A manager will just try to manage you into good performance.
Mm-hmm.
I had some really poor and a couple of good sales managers, and they fit that title.
Huh.
And I had probably one, maybe two really good sales leaders that it changed my life.
Yeah, and they gave you purpose.
Well, purpose, and they really understood. They could take a team and really understand each one of us individually and what our needs were. And I learned a lot from them and learned how to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's more difficult, but it's a skill set that you need to really work on and develop. But you got to like people in the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And some managers don't like people.
Yeah.
Again, you may want to look at another career. Everybody wants the title and make the money, but if there's other careers now, especially, that you're not managing
Mm-hmm.
people. I hear that all the time. That people, oh God, people, they're tough. Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm.
They bring everything in their lives with them, and you've got to deal with that. But managing is if you want to do that, you've got to have some what we talked about earlier. You got to have some ability. You got to have empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and good, strong leaders. Empathy is, it's not something you have to work on. They already, okay, well, I understand. You have 2 kids oh my goodness, how do you keep up with that? And it's a wonder you're here every morning at 8.
Yeah.
With all if anybody has their own children, they know, not every morning's exactly the same.
Yeah.
They're not robots. And that's the other thing. A leader really understands that people are a compilation of their selves and really tries to get to understand that. Where a manager just looks at, oh, hey, you've got the goods. I'm going to make you work. I'm going to show you how to work harder. We're going to get, and what they're really saying is, I'm going to get more as a result of managing you to higher productivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's not exactly great leadership, but it does keep the engine moving.
Yeah.
But I think we're better than that.
Yeah. I talked with Craig Schuffelbein, and he had the same thing to say. I think very similar, like the manager's leader's difference. And he was saying, yeah, like the manager is really into like the output, just keep going. We need to reach this number. And he gave this interesting example that he was like, if you're driving down the road and you see somebody digging a ditch, have you heard this example by him or no?
No.
Okay, so he said, if you're driving down the road and you see someone digging a ditch and you ask them like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're digging a ditch. And then you drive down the road, see somebody doing the same thing. You ask them, what are we doing? We're digging a ditch. And the person said, we're building a hospital, instead of digging a ditch, the second person. And it's like the first person was managed, hey, you need to get that ditch dug. And the second person had a leader leading them saying, we're building a hospital. Like, you have more purpose to your job than just digging the ditch, which is so interesting. And he brought up that every person needs to feel that purpose in their job. And as a leader, you need to instill that they have a purpose in their job and that there's a bigger goal in mind than just digging the ditch.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting.
Well, and again, I'll go back to sales and my selling career. Is if you were going in just to sell something like a copier, but if you're really looking at a company and asking them and trying to demonstrate how they could be more productive and either save money or utilize their money better, those are great lessons, but that's a better relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And as I progressed in my career, I found that I really enjoyed relationship selling.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the best at or always wanting to be the most transactional person. I was more, let's build a relationship. Let's see where we go here. You brought up a good example. I think of, the ditch digging, and I think of things even in at the county board level. It's sometimes trying to help supervisors understand that it's not just this ordinance. This ordinance is part of the overall development and welfare to the entire county. And when we do something in mental health, it not just helps the people that are in need of mental health. It also helps the county in terms of these people, as we help them turn around their lives, they will become more productive in their personal life, in their long-term, better members of their family, can be better parents, better children, whatever it is. And ultimately, it helps society. And if you look at it from that standpoint, wow, that's now that's an investment.
Yeah.
So all we're spending this kind of money on, what are we getting? Well, you should ask what we're getting out of it, but you should listen then. And if we're getting better and more productive citizens, if we're turning around people's lives, or we're giving people hope, that helps with so many more things. And it's a good investment, we find, for society.
Yeah, because it's a bigger picture that you're working on.
Bigger picture, it's where do you break it down? I mean, homeless, a lot of that is mental health. Okay, so you're not going to save everybody, but if you put apparatus in that you help some people, you're making things better. And that is better for society. Well, you have to invest in that. It's just like you have to invest, in roads or streets. You could either say, well, we can have a few potholes and, it'll be all right. Or you could really look at, and that's what we need to do is, well, let's look at aggregate. Let's look at what's the best thing so that we don't develop potholes. What would help road services be more permeable when it rains, snows, freezes? I believe we'd have the technology, and we could have the technology, but there's people that don't necessarily want that because they make money on.
Right.
That's not a good reason for slowing progress, and we have a lot of that in our society. And that's not true capitalism. Capitalism is always about investment, always about improvement, regardless of what it does. You need to find a better way to enhance your bottom line. That's using the brain. That's using the progress of human development to your advantage.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah. What helps you with looking at that bigger picture and going down the road? Because I could see maybe somebody has a problem, for example, maybe they're stuck in life and don't know what their passion is or something. What could help you figure out their down the road bigger picture?
Well, we were talking about it earlier. I mean, that's part of learning. That's part of, again, our own personal development. A lot of times that gets stunted by poor circumstances growing up, not having security within the home. A parent's a bully rather than a parent. You had a bullying experience with a peer on a playground or whatever. All those things, again, all those circumstances, all that empathy. But we don't give ourselves. You can't give empathy unless you have empathy for yourself. You can't give love unless you love yourself. That's an old axiom. But I believe that you have to have some empathy, some sympathy for yourself and go, I am very poor at giving sympathy for myself. When I went through cancer, it was just, it was no, we're going. But I had to learn. I had to learn patience. I had to learn a little bit better, more self-reflection, self-empathy. Once I started doing that, it was, okay. It's like what I'm going through now. I just had work in my heart. And so now it's okay, we've got to rebuild. There was some atrophy. And I want to go right back to, let's go to 15 reps. That's how I was trained. No, it's slow it up, lightweight, rebuild the sinew, the tissue. And it's kind of, and at my age, having that kind of patience to be able to rebuild, you got to have hope that one, you're going to live long enough to have the benefit of it. But two, you got to have a little bit of, normally last year I could grab this. Well, I'm going to still do that. Or I'm going to still be able to do that, but it's going to take me a little bit of build time. That happens in all our lives. We have to give ourselves build time. To those people that have been wounded, harmed, and then try to take it out on others, or again, it's a little bit of self-reflection and how do we help them? This is what I've learned through some of our mental health people, as well as seeing some of the in action, is, why is somebody thinking like this? Why is somebody so upset? Why is the trigger
Mm-hmm.
that quick? Wow, it takes a lot to help them come back off it, for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I have no compunction about myself that at times I forget even my own lessons. Okay, let's rein that in a little bit. And then my body or something else will happen, or a circumstance like, hey, Paul, remember, you talked about this, or you learned this 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do it. It's the old physician, heal thyself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it's a combination of the whole mind, body, spirit. And that's difficult to do. Some people are great at it.
Mm-hmm.
Those serene people, God bless them. That's not me. But I try to be that person that's in that, okay, I'm always in that learning modality. And then part of it is self-learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that person, they get so tense about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's, all right, how do we help them understand?
Yeah.
I understand why people don't want to talk religion, because it's, there's some people that's all about absolutes.
Mm.
And then I'm going, but, just looking at nature, there's no absolutes.
Right. Yeah.
And there's none.
Mm-hmm.
People, it's like, oh, it's like day to day, but still too windy. I'm going, really? It's sunny. It's 60. We don't have an earthquake going on. We're not being flooded.
Yeah.
There's no pending snow.
Mm-hmm.
But you're complaining about it.
Yeah.
I don't get that at all. I admit that. I don't. That part I don't get. The gratitude part of living.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, how do we help? I don't think we can give it, but how do we help our young people with that? Because I think the more that we have gratitude for what we have,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to learn and the opportunity to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is one of the things that we kind of lose because we're trying just to manage these kids to get through from third grade to fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
That's a manager. That's not leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership would be, all right, I want to make sure that they're doing math and they're doing reading at a third grade level before they go to fourth grade. Because with every level they start losing after that, everything becomes more difficult. They fall behind. They get discouraged, and discouragement leads to what you were talking about, poor sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And what is poor sense of self? Well, then it becomes insecurity. What happens, especially with males? Well, we bluff our insecurity with bravado.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turns into, well, then we got to find the other guys. Then we're trying to prove to that guy. We may not believe it, but all right. And they want me to do something that's wrong. I know is wrong, but I do it just because I'm that brave guy. And it's like that behavior just manifests itself.
Yeah.
But a lot of it goes back to, maybe their, parenting wasn't secure or whatever else. It's, you can't expect people to have ethics if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of things that happen that way. Same thing with empathy. Same thing with the ability, again, to if you have respect for others and have decorum and you have respect for yourself, well, of course you want to have a good discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't discuss things that are upfront with somebody, but you got to do it behind their back, or you got to be, say things that aren't true, but I can even write them and I'm going to get this. That's what's happening today.
Yeah.
And it's its own form of, I think it's part bullying. It's part, again, lack of self and lack of integrity. And then it's that self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is because it can be masked so easily today.
Right.
You can get a hidden whatever on your website and think nobody else is going to see it, or send something out and say nobody's going to see it, or no, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you can hide behind anonymity, people will say or do what they want.
Yeah.
But again, are you harming yourself, your own spiritual side, by being deceitful?
Right.
And I think deceiving yourself is kind of the ultimate challenge to us.
Mm-hmm.
I remember people, for me, a lot of, like I said, a sense of self, sense of individuality was very important.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, as I learned things, did things that failed and remade, rebuilt, it gave me confidence. Well, confidence is a huge thing when it comes to managing, leading, trying, in working with other people. And some people love it, some people hate it.
Are you ever self-critical on yourself?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll look at this, or think I could have said that better. I said too much, or said not enough, or I could have thought this. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
But I also find that worrying over things is a really, if you lose sleep over something just because you worried over it, it's, what did I do? How could I have done it better? What did I learn? And be a little gentle on yourself. I try to be a little bit less critical and more, okay, made a mistake there, but what can I do with it? How can I make it up the next time?
Yeah, right. Did getting cancer change your perspective on everything?
No, I think what getting cancer did is probably reinforce a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think I was good at it, but cancer made me really reflect. And it was, okay, I'm strong enough. I can do this. I can overcome this. This is one, every bit of, when it first started, every bit of news was bad news. And I was considered Pollyandy, Mr. Optimist, and people thought it was a bunch of bahooey.
Yeah.
And I proved them wrong. I proved my wife and a lot of friends, everybody else was like, wow, you can go through that and still come out like, hey, life is good.
Yeah.
They thought, that was carrying, I was overcoming something. No, that's who I was. And what it helped me realize is who I was. That I really was that person that gets up and gets up when you get knocked down. I think, there are certain things that a lot of us, we all are individuals, and we all have, I'd love to be that person that, and I believe in that saying, it's the old Vince Lombardi, it's not how you get knocked down, it's how you get back up again. Well, then you can really get knocked down. And it really is how you get back up again. But when you get cancer, in late stage, and they tell you it's not good, it's in the wrong places. Most people don't, 98.7% don't still remember those numbers. Don't survive this in 2 years, maybe 3. You get that told to you by several doctors and experts. You could either take it all in and, or you go, all right, what do we got to do? And so what it taught me was that I really am that person. I had been knocked, fortunately for me, not necessarily that I liked it, but many times in my life before I had been knocked down and I had overcome emotionally, relationship-wise, disappointments in life. And one of the people who disappointed me the most sometimes was me. I should have tried harder. I should have given more. I should have been a little bit more, did a little bit more listening here, did a little bit more learning here. So that's what it did for me.
Yeah.
It was, okay, let's slow down here. But I didn't concentrate on my flaws. I concentrated on okay, what do I have to do? And I listened better to the people that could really help and really wanted to help. And I just kept on going. And I did the things and have continued to do the things. This eating better, it really does work. Some people, I want to eat better, but I really do. They lose their habits. Where I developed new habits from eating, exercise, all the things that physically make us go.
Yeah, it's so easy to say no and just to walk away from it.
Lower salt, eat less fat, no fried food. I can't live without
what's that crap? Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I live, because I'm owed this. I watched that in my parents and relatives who all died from smoking-related diseases or too much sugar. Diabetic. It was because, and they were told by doctors, and it was society knew that you should stop doing that. Why would I live it's not living if I can't do that. So I didn't have any of that. It was like living was the most important part, and living well and living healthy. Well, okay, that was the most important part. So now what do I have to do? Well, let's see what some of the experts have to say, and a nutritionist or other people, and let's, now I can trade extra, recipes with nutritionists. It's kind of fun. Well, have you tried olive oil? It's one of those. We can all learn. Just give yourself that opportunity.
Yeah, right. And learning from the experts too, and getting their experience, because they're sharing their knowledge with you.
Yeah. Well, in science, I know, some people are, but having known people that are scientists that do the work with integrity and do the work with modesty and just this is what they really do, they learn a lot and how peptides work and enzymes. And it was an enzyme that in my current format, I just went through some heart disease, but it was somebody asked for a certain test that was an enzyme. One little enzyme showed that what I was suffering from was this thing found a heart failure. It was one enzyme. And they were able to do all this extra work and fix it in a way that, okay, well, we wouldn't have, even the experts, we wouldn't have thought about that. But the combination of all these minds and all these pieces of science, okay, we could do this.
Yeah.
And even experts, like my brother-in-law is a cardiosurgeon, and, well, we didn't have that technology.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, and this is all new. It's like, great. So everybody, even at that level, can learn new things.
Yeah, and continue.
And continue to learn. And, for the sake of society, again, must learn.
Right. Were there ever hard days during the cancer that you were discouraged and stuff?
Yeah. I would say chemo is,
Grueling.
I empathize with all my fellow people that have gone through, chemo, especially harsh chemo. I went through a very tough round of chemo, one that they wouldn't give anymore, but was somewhat experimental at the time. And they were combining a lot of chemo drugs. Well, it really did take a toll on my body.
Yeah.
And that was rough. I'm not going to fail to say that. There were days. Yeah. And I just, the pain, the loss of muscle, the weight, everything, you couldn't eat. It was just, it was rough. It was very rough. And then then you come back up and you bounce down, you come back up.
Yeah.
So you try to get a hold of that psychologically. And I was very fortunate between my wife, Paula, family, and some really, really good friends. A couple of them showed up on one day, and of all things, it was their friendship and laughter. It kind of gave me like, okay. I was so sore the next day from laughing because I didn't have any more stomach muscles. And when I got through that, I'm like going, all right, damn it, we can do this.
Yeah.
And right before that, I was just like, wow, you're, it's round 10 and you've taken 4 or 5 hits to the face and the gut, and you just have, you don't think you have anything left. But it's being able to go through that.
Yeah.
And then I listened, it was like somebody said, well, eat, swallow, drink water, do whatever you got to do. And I did that. And I found the comfort foods. We found, I had to fool my brain into, this is really, you're going to like this. And I don't want anybody to eat it anyway. So you just, I don't know, this self-preservation in the end, I think is a stronger emotion than people maybe give it credit to. Fighting cancer is one of the worst. But it's also, after you've had a heart attack or heart surgery, doing all the things you're supposed to do, following through with the physical therapy, not just at the physical therapist's office, in your home, doing the stretching. Oh, this is so boring.
Right.
Oh, I don't like eating like this. Oh, I'm craving salt. Yeah, well, yeah, okay. But we have the mental strength to overcome. We really do. All these issues, and I'm one of those people that believe in that firmly, especially in our society. We're lucky as citizens of the United States, but the freedom we have of thought and of perseverance, if we want to overcome these issues, we can. If we want to come together and form that better union as we were literally taught by our ancestors, we can. If we don't want to, and you want to break it all up, well, I don't know why, but you're going to lose a lot of that capability, that sense of self. But I think the greatest gift we can give to any generation is the ability to, hey, it's not easy holding this all together. And it's not easy being in a democratic republic. It's just not easy. But we're going to give it to you, and good luck. But we're also going to give you the tools, the learning and the capability, and it's up to you.
Right.
And I believe we've always seemed to be able to improve upon it. We go through just like when you go through cancer, like I said, you have your naders and you have your, and it's like, it's a tough roller coaster ride. And if you get too caught up in it emotionally, it's tough. But if you, and the humans, we have the brain power to do rational thought, common sense. I always get told so many times, well, Paul, everything you talk about is common sense. I don't know any better. I really don't. That's, there's nothing I can say to that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the discussions I have with people, whether it's politically, business, life, common sense. Oh, okay. Yeah. And the same thing to me is like when I'm learning from, what I learned from cancer was, for me, and maybe just for me, but pain is endurable. And it's not going to foil my desire to want to live a quality life. Again, that mental toughness, when you asked earlier, that's probably some of the things I learned in sports. It was, all right, I wasn't the biggest guy and all that, but I wanted to play football. Well, you nuts? But I was fast, I was good, I had good hands, and that meant you're going to get hit. And that wasn't always, I was like, all right, what's the name of that bus? But, I just liked it. And it was one of those that was life. You're going to get hit.
Yeah.
You're going to stagger. And it can be emotionally, physically, relationship-wise. There's no perfection. And we have to have the desire, because we certainly have the capability. But it's all in what you want to do. And it is a you thing. It's not a all of them or blame it on others. I mean, that was the one thing I've heard other cancer patients, this happened because of going. Yeah, for me, it was secondhand smoke. I could have blamed every smoker, and there was some resentment, but for the most part, it was, okay, how do I avoid that?
Yeah.
And then I got involved after I got better into eliminating inside buildings. Okay, why harm others that are non-smokers?
Right.
So you take it on and you try to help others. That kind of started my whole community thing with, let's make it safer and better for the people that don't smoke. And then we heard all the things, economics, and it was there was enough study to know that the economic. Then I learned what I learned there was how to fight bad arguments with good economics. And it was, we found out that it was a lot better to keep buildings clean or hotel rooms clean or restaurants better if they didn't have smoke, because the curtains and everything else absorb secondhand smoke. Yeah. Just like your lungs do. Because, the secondhand smoke didn't cause that. I had that told to me by, many people in the, that were smokers or in tobacco business. And I'm going, the lungs are no different tissue than what we're putting ceiling tiles. Take the curtains down in a room that's been full of smokers in a house. Today, you can't sell a house.
Oh yeah.
If you've been a smoker, you've got to completely mitigate it. Well, think about that.
Yeah, work hard too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And think about that. We were doing that to every human being, in a house, in a bar, in a restaurant, in a hotel. Well, why? I was flying a lot on airplanes that had smoking and non-smoking sections.
Yeah.
They didn't change airways. They just got more full of tar and everything else, and you start absorbing that into your lungs.
That's insane.
And ask anybody of the time in the 80s that went out to bars or went out dancing, and you came home, I got to get rid of my clothes because it all smells, my hair. You wanted to wash yourself, thinking, well, you don't think that went into your skin, into your lungs, and all that? And some of us, it did more harm.
Right. Huh. So that's how it sprouted in you?
For the most part, that's what was perspective. We checked for radon. We checked for everything else. It was the chemicals that were found in the tumor had, suspiciously chloride or fluoride, not fluoride. They were a lot of the, it's going way back, but a lot of things that are in secondhand smoke.
Okay. And what age were you when you got the cancer?
45. Well, I was 45 when it was detected. I was operated on and went through the chemo. According to the doctors, it obviously happened much earlier.
Okay.
It could have been that kind of growth to the size it got into the infestation in my lymph nodes took years.
Okay. Let's take it back to college. We didn't even touch on that. Where'd you go to college and whatnot?
I went to Whitewater, UW Whitewater, proud Warhawk. It was, again, it was a vibrant campus, had some good professors, had some not so good professors. But I learned, I was not necessarily strong in the sciences, but I learned to enjoy biology and because of a professor that helped me really be curious about it, how it works in terms of our entire society. And it was different than, you got to learn, it was, again, that bigger picture. And that was the nice thing about what I think universities can give us, colleges can give us, is let's look at, it's like the ditch digger. Let's look at a bigger picture. We're not just digging a ditch. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
We're trying to make the water run better. We're trying to supply a feed better. We're trying to, we want to do a better building here. We need a stronger foundation. Well, that's what education should be.
Yeah.
We're not here just, because a lot of people come out of school. Oh, I'm so sick of school. And there's still people today. I still laugh. I don't use algebra. Why don't I have to learn algebra?
Yeah.
And of course, they're doing that on the internet, on their smartphone. Neither one would be here without algebra.
Yeah.
Without algorithms. So once I learned that, I'm still not good at algebra, but once I learned, now I'm more curious about how does algebra work and why is it important?
Yeah.
And those people that can learn it well, how do we help them do that? And how do we help encourage more discovery and more use of mathematics? Because math is that universal language.
Right.
It's in music. It's in so many things. It's in the sounds in our atmosphere, the sounds in space. It's all mathematical. So if we look at all those, gravitation, that type of curiosity, that type of who we are and what we are. Thanks for the cameo.
Yeah.
And there's always a political commentary someplace.
Yeah. Dog comes in peace in the background.
I was like, yeah, okay. You don't believe everything I say either. Okay, I got that. Everybody's a critic. But I think that the math, so what do we have to do to help young people learn more math? And I remember when I was in college, and it was like learning, it wasn't just that subject matter. We were just trying to get the grades, which was the unfortunate part of still the way things work then and still work now.
Yeah.
Is just getting the grade.
Right.
What are we doing to enhance the learning? What are we going to do with this? And somehow, I don't know where it happened, and obviously it happened in grade school, but it definitely manifests itself in high school and certainly in college. My brain had already turned into the back and forth. What am I learning here? And enjoying that part of it.
Yeah.
So getting a grade was, okay. I took pass-fail classes and learned just as much there as I did. And I had a professor, I said, why are you doing this? You get an A in this course. You're so good at it. And he was right, probably, from if all I was trying to achieve is, I get an A. Isn't that nice? I got an A.
Yeah.
10 years from now, it won't make any difference. It's what did I learn there? What did I learn then? That's helping me now. And that's what we need to change our whole educational system to. But again, I remember one of the best things in college was a lot of philosophical discussions. I got in a lot of those with my instructors, with some of the professors, and back and forth with counselors. And that turned out to be great. Those were some of the most learning and most things I remember the most. That and then talking things over with my peer group, your fellow students, and discussing subjects rather than just, what did you learn?
Yeah.
Regurgitating it. And we had professors from all sides. That was also good. Philosophy was just as much fun as, biology, or for me, history was easy, and I enjoyed history. I could have stayed in history forever. Political science was another one that turned out to be, the science part of it turned to be a lot of fun. Communications turned out to be not just to communicate, but what goes into communication. I learned a lot there in persuasion, which I didn't know at the time, which ended up being great in my short to long-term career. Because it's always everything you're doing is all about persuading, whether you're selling, managing, leading, in every phase. It's learning the good ways to persuade. Because there are many bad ways to persuade.
Really?
We're seeing a lot of that now. Yeah, put out false narratives, put out false information. I can make you just about, I can make you just about believe anything. We have people out there that still believe, Earth is flat.
Right, which is crazy.
And then when you look at the moon, or you look at, we never were to the moon. Really. We have satellites. We look down, the Earth is round. I mean, it's all there. But, and again, it's more convenient not to explore for some people. And I don't get that.
Yeah.
I think our whole mind is set up for exploration. It's just what really do you want to learn?
Do you think that's what keeps you in a positive mindset, is the curiosity and willingness to learn?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. I mean, positiveness is a combination of curiosity, combination of zeal, wanting life, enjoying it. And I think people that have known me, especially with the scar tissue and the pain I have every day, that I don't talk about it. I don't, it's there, but it's like, okay, so what? And these types of things, I think the going back and forth, that's what moves me. I think everybody has that, but they just need to find what is that. And then how do we enhance that? My thing right now, I still think we can do a better job in working with younger people. And I'm hoping that I could still have some impact in doing that in my future. And, at my age, a lot of people say, you deserve, just sit back, do whatever you want to enjoy. And I will do some of that, certainly. But I also know there's part of me that, to your point, has to be there. I'm optimistic about where we are as a society and where we can go forward and be part of the world in terms of going forward in a positive manner, in an individual freedom manner, in a way, in an economic manner, in a justice for all manner. I'm one of those people that when I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I actually mean it. So I think our flag is great, but I do the tail end, which a lot of people say but don't really believe, freedom and justice for all, for everybody. Yeah, I believe that. I think, but that's tough because that means for everybody means, not everything that they're not all going to talk or look like or be like me or have the same, but how do we help people realize good ideals?
Yeah.
Good, and how do you develop, cities and towns that are there for the enhancement of humans, not just a collection of. And your greatest question is the difference between managing and leading. That's the difference. When I look back at how we started as a country, there were people that were leaders. They didn't know everything. They made mistakes. They admitted to making mistakes. They knew there had to be flexibility as time went on, as we did more learning, and they developed that way. But they weren't arrogant enough to go, "Wow, this is it. This is all it. Nothing else has to be done or written.
Yeah,
humans will be good forever." Well, no. And it took when you look at how long it took when the Magna Carta was written for how it really got implemented, and then actually utilized. That was 400 to 600 years. And that, you look at that and you go, "Whoa, we really learned slow." And we are. I think as a full group of society, we are. There are some that are faster than others, but those are the optimists. Those are the curious ones. Those are the ones that they've always been the odd lot. I know we've always wanted to excommunicate them, and we go, "Well, no, they're that that can't be true because we've held this truth for a long time." I mean, I think it's still hard for some people to get rid of the whole flat Earth thing because that was still believed in longer than what we've known is the world is a sphere. So we're still young in that, in terms of human history, to that point, because we only believe what, for some people it's only believe what you see.
Right.
To be an optimist means you actually believe that there's more to it, that there's more gain to have. Hope is the one thing that we take away from people if we're some people are in that mindset. If we want them just to believe what we believe, you take their hope away. And hope is the one thing that sets us apart because we do a lot of things and build a lot of things, and somewhere in us, all of us, there was hope. Otherwise, as a cancer patient, thinking, why do you want to fight this? Why do you want to get up the next day? Why do you want to endure that pain? But if you don't have hope that you're going to get, and cure is a bad word. They mislabeled the vaccine for COVID. It wasn't heal you. It was like a flu shot. It was like, okay, it's going to help me fight that virus.
Yeah.
And we know now that we have the ability to, one, the body has the ability, but how do we help the body? And that's all a lot of the shots that are developed is, okay, how do we enhance the body to fight that virus? What antibodies do we have to give it? Again, that's the science. So in agreeing, agreeing to take chemo, for instance, or have your chest cut open, rip it open, go in there and grab your heart. You got to have hope that, one, people know what the heck they're doing. Two, that you have the ability to overcome it. And I will say, for me, a lot of it is faith. I make no compunction that when I was going through chemo and before I had my open heart surgery, that it was like, okay, I've got faith that they're going to know what they're doing. We're going to get done. We're going to do it. And I'm going to have the ability and the strength to do what I have to do to recover from it. And they're both tough to recover from.
Right.
But if you desire to want to overcome it, you can. Overcoming aging, you're not going to overcome it.
Yeah.
It'll take its toll. It gets the best of us, all of us. But you can either enhance it, enjoy it, and make the most of it, or you don't. And oh, geez, and I go, I'm just one of those people. I want to, give it as much as I can, as long as I can. And then, okay, well, on to the next journey.
Yeah, right.
And I believe there's another journey. So either you believe that, again, some people, they want to make out so that it's easy to understand. I'm going, we have no, that's the other thing. We have, you got to be able to have some faith without having a clue of what's going on next. And that's the only way you overcome cancer. The only way you come open heart surgery is you have no clue.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's been done 1,000 times before, but it's your own body now. We're going to glue it all back. We're going to take it apart, glue it back together. Everything's going to be fine. Good luck with that. Well, if you don't have hope and a little bit of faith and who knows?
Right.
Then how do you, and I come over well. And again, to me, it's a little sense of humor, a little bit of, belief, and then let's give her what we got.
Yeah. Does faith help you too with overwhelming tasks? Like I'm just thinking of, I'm assuming a lot of projects that you work with in the court or whatever are so overwhelming because there's such a big picture. What helps you with breaking it down into solving it?
I have faith, one, in people I work with, faith in human nature that the best can come out. How do I help that happen? And where I'm in a leadership position, how do I help people make good decisions? What do I do? What do I say? Not always up front, but behind the scenes. Who do I talk to? There's different ways to ensure that good decision making takes place. And people that want to start working, we know that I will always ask a question that will come sometimes out of nowhere. And that is a key ingredient in helping people do it on their own. Don't wait for me to ask that question.
Yeah.
Ask it. And if you're one of the people that are formulating that, you'll make better decisions. And what I'm always asking, what's the economics behind this? Why are we doing this? Whether it's government, whether it's, and where I've made mistakes in my life is I haven't asked enough questions.
What are some questions that you wish you would have asked in certain scenarios?
Oh boy. Well, I have one that, dealing with a contractor, never do it without agreeing and understanding what you're agreeing. In other words, put it in writing so that there's no equivocation.
Okay.
Because if you want to get certain things done, you have a certain vision. I realize my vision and somebody else interpreting and then doing it is two different things.
Right.
Okay, let's agree on this. Let's have a, either drawing or something or an understanding or in writing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one. Secondly, I think other mistakes, that I've made is, sometimes you work with people and you assume they know what they're doing. No, you should always ask.
Yeah.
Don't make too many assumptions.
Uh-huh.
But don't ask it in such a way that you're demeaning their person, but try to make sure, okay, how do I do this in a way that, hey, for my understanding, I know we've done it like this before. Just, is this the best way? And why?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think if we did that more often, whether it's teaching, parenting, whatever, is this the best way?
Right.
Because everybody assumes, this discipline, is that really the best way?
Mm-hmm.
Or this not discipline? Let everybody go. No. What rails do we need? What are the guardrails? And any decision making.
Yeah.
And so my regrets have been where I haven't utilized my own advice sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, where you know everything that's going on, because in both scenarios that you described, it's kind of like one person's in the know and then the other person isn't on the same page. Being on the same page is very important, it sounds like.
And gaining that understanding is very important.
Okay.
And I've learned the hard way that you have to get that understanding. Mm-hmm. I ask much better questions now for my own health medically than I ever did, because I really do understand, is that the best way? Is that it? Am I, talking with doctors about the medication I'm on?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the best? And we've had changes as a result of those discussions. Let's lower this, let's raise this, let's eliminate that, let's add. And I think that, again, to self-advocate as a patient, it takes a lot of work. But when I was not in as good, Paula, my wife, did some of the questioning. We had somebody in the family that could, but again, outside expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read a lot. I read a lot on. I'm always curious about leadership, both past and present, historical leaders. A person like Lincoln, very modest about it, very self-effacing, but good leader. Vision, understanding, but had great faith in both the Constitution and the founding of this country. And that's what carried Lincoln. And that's what made Lincoln such a great leader. He knew the vagueness of dealing with people. And he sometimes got angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But he also knew that and had the curiosity to, how do we make this better? How do we make this better? So he's a great leader to read about and see all the different things and his own failings. But I learned a lot that, despite my own failings, I can still both lead myself, I can lead others, I can try, I can hope.
Mm-hmm.
I have faith that society can and will and wants to be better. But I don't like extremes on any end,
mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, okay, you're not really seeing. There has to be forgiveness. I think the other thing is, of all the points, is that ability to forgive yourself for making mistakes and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't just forgive it. Okay, well, that's it. I forgive myself, and I'm going to continue to drink too much or do whatever it is that got you into trouble in the first place. No, you have to make some habitual changes. But forgiving yourself for past infractions or the past things you did wrong, you got to do that. You can't hang on to that.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I would have. Well, yeah, don't we all?
Uh-huh.
It's like, let's move on and, am I doing the best I can for me today?
Yeah.
And then for others. And, it's kind of a simple, but I think a maxim that could work for more people. And then, again, when you run into people that are very, very, like you were talking about your discussions earlier, that just, why do they think this way?
Yeah.
Well, then try to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think this way? Why is that a point for you? And help them self-reflect. And you'd be amazed. I think a lot of people it helps them.
Yeah.
But until people are questioned or people are comfortable, being amongst themselves and in their own little groups, you gotta, we've got the ability and the adaptability to break that up a bit. Why are you only reading one or participating in one social media platform when there are so many others?
Yeah.
Why are you reading from one source for, and what is news? I find that news is not somebody else's opinion. There's a fire outbreak in California today. Okay, that's the news.
Yeah.
Now, people are going to start giving their opinions on that. Oh, it's caused by climate change, it's caused by this, like company, caused by it. That's opinion.
Yeah.
What are the facts? Well, if we overburden our power grid and the lines let down or they can't, they spark or whatever. So how do we make better capacitors, better, what are we doing then to improve the electrical grid? All of it, and not just throwing everything out, but what are we doing? And you've got to enjoy, I will say this, to your point back, what I found with chemo is to enjoy incremental improvement. I think I always liked incremental improvement, but enjoying it was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I can lift this today, and I'll lift more tomorrow. Okay, good. Or I can do whatever it might be, or I can eat this today, and hopefully I'll get better tomorrow and able to eat more. And I think the same thing happens in our society. We don't take the gradient levels as they are. And again, having a historical perspective, understanding, realize it takes years to get things done.
Right.
I learned patience, I thought, through cancer and through other things. Then when I got into even local politics, to get things done positively, it takes time. You've got to talk a lot to people. You've got to say things. You got to, hey, have you thought about this? And then you got to let them think, well, that was my decision. They don't mention you that they talked to you at all, but they all came up with this. So, okay, that's all right. As long as we made progress.
Yeah.
So if you're not all worried about what happens to you or that it's all about you, if you truly want improvement in society, which I do, I've found that I've been involved in a lot of change, even though, all I did was ask the questions or help people be curious. Why do we have this? Why do we do that?
Yeah.
And so I'll continue to try to do that and hope for improvement. And I think, that can all happen.
Yeah. I feel like with myself, sometimes I don't see those incremental changes that I make, and I don't have the patience that I'm like, oh, I'm 3 years into like the business and I feel like I haven't made like any changes or any growth. But then I look at like all the incremental changes that I have made, that I'm like, okay, I feel like I did grow, but at the same time, it's hard to look at those incremental changes if you don't have open eyes to look at them. You need to be looking at them.
Well, you got it right there. Exactly. When you're younger, it's very hard. But each incremental change and running your own business is extremely difficult, but it's okay. Is my cash flow a little bit better? Or if I did this more often, what did I learn here that I should do more often? Or this guest or whatever is okay.
Yeah.
And putting lessons together. But it's really reflecting on it, journaling it maybe, so you could read it. Journal something that you learned today, you could read it in 2 weeks ago. Okay. Because the one thing in cleaning out some of my stuff, I'm finding things that I wrote, in 2000, in 2014. I go, oh, I guess I was the one that did say that. 2 or 3 other people take the credit for it. Well,
yeah,
forget about it. But at least I proved to myself that, I came up or helped come up with the idea. And, and I saw it in notes, about economic development in this county and other things. I'm going, okay. But what's happened since then is we've had great economic development. But, somebody has to ask the question, why don't we, and again, each increment and each lack of, and letting yourself do the learning and be part of that, being part of the greater society, that's important. And I'll give you a great example on when it comes to climate change and not celebrating incrementally. When we were, a couple of years ago, was switching a lot of power in this country and in the world, but mostly in this country, we're going from less and less coal to more and more natural gas.
Okay.
And that was a 33% reduction in carbon emissions. And now it's happening, a few shortly, we got to get rid of all fossil fuel. No, you should have celebrated and been celebrating and could have, for 10 years, if we had 33% less carbon emission from our power sources and built a stronger, better power grid as a result of using a more efficient and less carbon-producing fuel, what a great increment that would have been for all of humankind.
Yeah.
And we could have exampled it out to the world. And because there is a lot of natural gas. And we could have, as a society, benefited from it as far as, because we have a lot of natural gas in this country. So, could have learned how to utilize it better overseas and help other countries reduce that carbon footprint. Now, because we still need more power, we got to have more power, and the cheapest way to do it is coal. A lot of the other countries are going back to more coal-fired, China going back to more coal-fired productions for power because we need power. Can't have electric vehicles without power.
Right.
We're not going to produce enough solar or wind without some other form of power. So, again, being incrementally happy is because everybody's looking for, like you were saying earlier, the people in your age, I want to learn whatever I can, make as much money as I can, and I'll be really happy.
Yeah.
No, you won't. Sorry. If you don't enjoy the ride up,
Right.
the ride there, incremental happiness is the way we really function well as a society, as our individual, as human beings, is enjoy the incremental growth, enjoy the incremental happiness, joy.
Yeah. Right. What are some book recommendations that you have?
Oh my gosh. Well, one, if you're curious about how we are a country, 1776 is to me one of the best books written. It just gives a perspective of what happened during that year. The difference between winning the Revolutionary War in this country and losing it was the fact that George Washington actually listened to people, engineers and other people that the British generals didn't, because they were of different classes. We didn't make that mistake. We didn't make that distinction. We took advice from somebody, whether they came from Maine or South Carolina or the hills of remote Pennsylvania. It was like, okay, we listened. And we listened to each other, and we worked on implementation. Washington was a fine leader because of that. Now he wants to, denigrate because of some of his personal flaws. We do that well when we look back at things. Oh, they were good, but they had personal flaws. Well, everybody has their personal flaws, and I dare anybody that is out there evoking things historically, especially about other people, that they're not doing in some way, shape, or form really themselves. And so I look at that book. David McCullough was the author, and that kind of book. Again, I read a book for what I can get out of it, so it takes me a while, but the learning and some of it stays with me. So I had put once I read that, I put a goal together to try to read something on every president, every leader in the country. And one of the ones I read about, it was a small book, but it was about James Madison. And James Madison wasn't the biggest guy, didn't have a great voice, was not oratorically great, but had the mind of somebody who really helped put forward. And one of the things, when you, again, in perspective of the times, he was the one that helped foster the Bill of Rights. And because there was arguments back and forth, and he was a devout Baptist, and it was, but it was at the time, the Anglicans were being paid. So they were being paid by some states, by some cities. So they were a state religion. So he fostered the Bill of Rights to say there should be no state religion. There is none. And he felt that we'd be better off if we just allowed then, so you practice the religion you want, as long as it doesn't violate, my rights or anybody else's rights. So there would be no religious law. It didn't say that we couldn't have laws influenced, but we're all influenced by our different backgrounds, education, whatever. But it can't be the law of the land if it's strictly because this church says so.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be because we agree that this is the best way to live as humans together.
Right. So when you read those books, do you just read it and then think for a little bit, or do you write down opinions?
Sometimes I write down opinions. Other times I reflect on it and start remembering it. But the thing with Madison that stands out to me the most was the fact that during the time when the Constitution was, when the Declaration of Independence was to be read, he came up with the idea it should be read at the same time all through the colonies. And through all 13 colonies at the same time, not, Philadelphia gets it first, or Pennsylvania or Boston or wherever, New York. He came up with the idea it should be read at all times so that we can congregate together and everybody gets inspired and we could really form the nation, the union that he felt, and then a lot of people felt at the time has to happen. Overcoming our differences, but forming so we can stand up to what we thought of tyranny at the time. And that was a great belief, an enlightened belief that I thought is still curious to this day to me, was that we are equal and capable of self-governing. Because when you've been ruled for centuries upon centuries by kings and actually believing there are special people, kings and queens and other people that can rule over you, when you've abdicated that to other people, now you've abdicated a huge amount of rights. When you believe that, there are serfs and I'm just always a serf and will always be a serf. No, they did not believe that. They believed that there could be steps to a better life. So Madison came up with the grand idea of getting this done before there was any social media. You got to think of the times. There was no phones. There was nothing. So send out town riders to every town, every village, every city that he could, and they would replicate it. And everybody would read it on such and such a day at noon, that the town crier in the middle of the town square would read it so all could hear it. And they would gather and stop all work, everything else, bring people from the farm fields in so everybody heard it all at once. And that was his idea. He executed it within 90-some% throughout the colonies. And it turned out to be one of the things that really propelled us into being able to form this union. So, Madison did that through his own, and how he put it all together and brilliance, persuaded other people, persuasion again, communicated. And again, he was not the most inspiring speaker, but he was an idea person. And he endured a lot going back and forth between his farm and Philadelphia and all that. But he really felt that he was part of it. And he was a great friend there were complete opposites of George Washington. And he was a somewhat friend, but somewhat antagonist with Thomas Jefferson. All these people did not get along like, hey, how are you doing? Great to see you. They were not that kind of group. They all had their differences, but they all relished their differences. They all put aside them. They all took big risks to form what was necessary at that time. And they all had, not all, but majority had, their own personal flaws. They were humans.
Right.
And yet they were able to, at least get this started. And that's all they thought about. They knew, and Lincoln knew that they were just getting it started. And, and the 1860s, we're overcoming a great evil, with slavery, and we got to overcome that. And then it was the next and the next. So all of this has happened. And regardless of what people think, we've done it while maintaining the rights individually of our states, villages, or townships. We all have rights that are still unequivocal, and we were doing fine. And now people want to try to rip some of those away. I don't understand why. And again, I'm looking at all sides here, and it's a matter of, no, you have to we have an apparatus in which to do things and do it correctly.
Yeah.
And again, we have manipulators, we have human flaws, we have people now are manipulating news, and only because people allow them and don't, as we talked about earlier, understand that, okay, here's what a fact is, and here's everything else that's opinion.
Right.
And we go to conjecture really quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really quickly. So yeah, I think there's going to be people, there will be technology that will help with that long term. Yes, can it be manipulated at first? Maybe. But ultimately, I think we can learn to, again, strip away that conjecture from reality.
That opinion that's kind of persuade people.
Well, yeah. I use the California fires because it's like, okay, I read, and when it's the easiest one to use, but that was a fire.
Yeah.
And then there was a cause. But then when people started conjecturing about what that cause was, it was overpower, it was this, it was climate change. You're going, okay, each individual fire. And it's like this year, okay, we're having, great weather in Wisconsin for a winter, but it's an El Nino year. Now, this will have it's like if you look at your daily progress when you're exercising. You have some days, hey, I had a lot of steps today.
Yeah.
And you have other days that are not. Well, again, you have to look at, is it a trend? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that science will tell us, the statistics will tell us that, what we have to do. Now, individually, when people ask me, I say, you want to improve the climate? There's a couple of ways you do. Pick up every piece of garbage you see, regardless if you put it there or not or where it is. Don't litter yourself. Mm-hmm. Keep the plastic out of the recyclable. I think it's common sense. Keep it out. Keep it out of the creeks, riverbeds. Don't throw out bottles in the trees, even though it sounds like, hey, I'm a cool guy and doing that. And then secondly, what do you have to do to plant a tree or a couple of trees? Mm-hmm. And working with your village or city or area, or clean up some nuisance bushes or plants. But what do you have to do? You can enhance the environment simply.
Yeah.
And then learn, okay, what are we going to do to learn about this, to make this better? And again, I think, there's people that want to talk about it, but what are we going to turn them into doers?
Right. Yeah.
Then take more science, take more math, do things that are actually, will actually help. Don't just say it. Mm-hmm. Simple things like buying things at farmers markets, help our producers, help our local farms thrive. All those things help. And it takes a little bit of mindfulness, but those, a couple of simple things, well, now you just improve the environment.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Right. Yeah. It's funny and it's hard because everybody plays a part in it. Like every single person plays a part in it
every day,
which is tough to make all those people doers. Because I know some people are still going to be the people that throw their stuff out the window while they're driving, and then some people are going to be the people that pick stuff up. But at the same time, there's a balance of each side that everybody needs to come together. I had this funny idea a couple of years ago. I was like, how could the roads get fixed? And I had this idea that every single citizen would have to chip in 2 days of the year to help redo the roads, which is totally unfeasible. But I was like, maybe that would be a good idea to get them all done. So then roads would never be closed. You never have to deal with the road being closed because everything would just get done in 2 days. But I don't think it'd be feasible. What do you think?
It's not feasible, but what I would say to that, and you bring up a great point. You want to improve the roads, understand who does it. Mm-hmm. Understand, in the state of Wisconsin, the counties are the ones that are the state, state highways, 94. They tell you where to build the roads, but the counties then take care of the state and their county highways. Municipalities take care of the roads here. Going beyond that, then, okay, how do we fund them better? Mm-hmm. How do we make sure, and how do we help not just fix roads, but what would it, like I said earlier, what would it take to improve the materials we use?
Right.
What kind of science can we put into it?
Yeah.
What's the barrier?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the special interests that get in the way of improving our roads, our bridges? And then my own piece of curiosity is, why do we build in the northern states, our villages, cities, and towns, and set up everything as if it's always June. Why don't we do more? We could have more connectiveness. We could use our land much, much better. Again, improving the environment would be, I wouldn't tear as much farmland up in our townships to develop. I would form more cities, villages, incorporate, and localize where people live. One, it's better for society. It's better for people to learn to work and live together because that makes more cohesion. More cohesion makes less strife. It also takes care of loneliness, the other things we talked about. And by giving people hope and learning and working and living together or in proximity, we'll make things better. We can make our parks better. We can make places that are more, that have solitude for those people that want and need that. But again, we can use our land better for the enhancement of all. And I look at buildings and I go, you could add one more story to some of these buildings and have, because we're lacking apartments. So you wouldn't you wouldn't add to the carbon footprint as much. You wouldn't, you would have more, you could do it with less cost.
Right.
Because now the cost of land is so much. Okay, I agree. That's good. We want appreciation.
Yeah.
But then how do we use it better? Well, if you go a little bit vertical, not much, but a little bit, and you have that many more living units, well, then you have people that are living in areas where the jobs all are. And do more of that and use less of that farmland. Yeah.
Interesting. What was your role at that court job that you had, or this past job that you had?
Being county board chair.
Yes. Sorry.
That was a lot of it. So, yeah, I've got a month to go before my full retirement. I got to do my term.
Really? Oh, that's awesome. Congrats. Yeah.
Thank you. And so when I first got on the board, I primarily listened. And then, again, the counties, we run the jails, we do the roads, we plow, we run the mental health apparatus, health and human services, make sure older people that are in need get their food, get shelter, younger people, get the help they need, homeless people, that are mental health, in our case, apparatus is strong that we can take care of that and help people immediately. So that does, and as chair of the county board the last 12 years, it's to gain consensus. People think, I'll just fight today. I'm going, no, when the question, and you should question, why are we like I said earlier, why are we spending this? What are we doing? How is it enhancing society? How will it make things better in the long term? Is this necessary? But then once we get that information, then do something positive with it. Make sure that we are fortunate in this area, in Waukesha County. We have a lot of companies that want to expand. We still are still manufacturing, so we manufacture a lot of items a lot of people don't know about, but they go into just about every car or plane or jet or ship. So by having that type of engineering, we need to enhance the learning so that we can create more people that are capable of doing that so these companies continue to thrive.
Yeah.
And by having that, that gives us the underpinnings of a good economy. So good jobs, people should pay, fair share of taxes. I've always been one that's been a big steward of the taxpayers' money that makes sure it's well invested. But well invested means just that. You need to have, again, good roads. All that infrastructure needs to be there. We need to enhance it. But I've learned a lot that we can enhance it better. We just need to, we can't keep doing things always the same old way and expect, greater results.
Right.
We need to always have a perspective of improvement, continuous improvement. I've worked well with the county executive, and he's a big believer and has got his entire staff, people working in continuous improvement. So as county board chair, I try to help the county board members do the same thing. You should improve your capability of doing this job, asking better questions with each term you take.
And at your sales job, was that something that you continue to improve, was asking better questions, or what was like?
Yeah, I would say that got me when I was starting in sales to when I, was going up the ranks and I didn't do things completely right, but I also questioned things. And it took me a while to learn how to take that and turn it into and individualize it into better selling.
Okay.
Then a good leader helped me really do that better. And when I really individualized it, and I was at Waukesha, when I really individualized it, connected, and built better relationships with people, is when I became better at sales. It wasn't for my sake. It was also how to develop, their businesses, and once it became symbiotic. I just became better at it.
Yeah.
But it took a while. It was a learning experience. Then to take some of those lessons and turn it into my personal life or other, that took a while. And then to turn it into, being a better, I think from manager to leader, that all took a while. But it was, that self-reflection.
Yeah. Do you have any failures or experiences that you really learned from at that job?
Many. And again, forgiving yourself means also trying to, what did I learn from this versus, remember every, but and a lot of it came back from, I would say, not asking good enough questions, not understanding a situation, and lack of understanding a situation is strictly not asking enough questions. Curiosity, our capability as humans, we should be able to understand most things around us. It's just being curious enough, taking the time. If all you're trying to do is go from one to the next and just put up numbers, you might be successful, you might gain wealth, but you're not always doing the job in the correct way. The correct way is, how does it help? Everything you sell should help somebody else, definitely the customer or the customer's customer. If it's just helping you as a sales, probably that's what's harming us the most in our society right now. We have people making a lot of money selling things, whether it's financial instruments or whatever, and not enhancing the people, the risk takers, the people that are actually doing the work in the building. And that's not the way a good, and certainly not a great society. That's just not how it works. You can have individuals that accumulate a lot of money, and and if that's your only value, well, okay, bully for you, but that's not going to build a stronger, better society. It's not going to make, it will not keep it going. You're doomed for failure. Selfishness is what brings most failure, both individually and certainly as a society. It has to be, there has to be a give back, a community building part of us, or we degrade quickly.
Did you ever struggle with that, with not believing in the product so much, or did you always believe in the products that you sold?
No, I most of the products I sold, I believed in, and there was a lot of them were the higher priced products in the market, which price was not ever. It was my job to convince people to use a better quality product. There was a product or two that I managed in, and because you're at a point in life where you're just trying to learn, the products were, I would say, good maybe, but not as good as they could have been. But some of it was we turned to, in one case I can think of, not naming any names, we learned how to utilize products in conjunction with other products to make a better system. And that was when I learned doing that. It was not always the easiest thing to sell, but it was a great thing to market, and it was a great thing to see what it could do. But again, individual salespeople, some do it, and some they just give me what I got, and I'll go out and sell it. I'm making money, and it's very temporary, and again, it's very transactional. I think if you want to make the most out of a society and the most out of life, you want it to be more than that.
Yeah, a purpose behind it.
I think a purpose driven life, or certainly is much more satisfying. My last years have been much more satisfying because of that, because the greater community has been my focus. And so individual accolades are nice, but there's not much I've done for me. In fact, I've been out saying we need to build better or more housing, when in fact, if we didn't build any more condos in Waukesha County, I'd be much better off, because we live in a condo and it keeps appreciating, and people want more of that. but nobody wants to build them. So it's like, well, why bother? But I think those are the types of things that are, you don't have to be selfish about everything.
Right.
And I think, it would enhance the lives of many, many others and improve the life and the quality of life we have here in this area. But, it takes some persuading.
Were you always like that, community focused, or did you grow into that and have it?
I think I was more community focused. Yeah, I was more about that. I think there was conflict in terms of when you're young and it's all about, hey, what do I have to do to survive? You're a little less likely to be that. But I was one that I think always reached out to other sides and saw the better part of humanity and didn't believe that we had to be divisive to get ahead.
Yeah, right. I want to ask you an interesting question. I had somebody raise up to me that they talked about how like everything in our life has to have permission, and they thought that it was like kind of rooted in the American school system where like everything we need to be granted permission, like to go to the bathroom you need permission, to raise your hand you need permission, like everything is like sprouted from permission instilled in us as a kid. Do you believe that is kind of true?
Well, it is, and I think one of the things is that you do need some formulation, and you do need, and again, structure. And the younger we are, but I see people that take advantage even as they get older. But once people have proven the ability to take care of themselves and take care of business, that's one thing. It's more disturbing to me if somebody would have, as an adult, would have to say, "Hey, I got to go to the bathroom." And like taking my class was, you've got to go to the restroom and come back, and then you're. The better people always say, well, what did I miss? And to talk to a classmate after or whatever wouldn't be disruptive about it. But how do you learn that? You're not going to learn it as a 4, 5, 6, or 7-year-old. So again, what we're teaching and learning we have to have, again, perspective. First, second, and third grade, but it has to be learned.
Yeah. Because
if it's not learned then, and you have a disruptive 7th or 8th grader, now you're harming the entire. So there has to be discipline. There has to be decorum.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we are missing, which we learned, not all of us, but I remember thinking about it a little bit more with a combination of both what I was learning at school, in church, by adults, not necessarily parents, but by watching others, was graciousness. I always felt that people that were gracious were, I don't know, even when I was younger, I just, that person didn't know the term. But when they were gracious, it was like that teacher that interrupted me between classes and just said, learn a new word and let's talk about it next week and how to use it in the sentence next. Now, how she picked me or whatever, but that graciousness made a huge impact in my life. And the words I learned and how to put them together and how to utilize grammar.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it was, when I look at how it enhanced my entire life, and then having respect for others, another society, another language, when I traveled internationally, it was that when I saw certain people that were in other countries being gracious, some Americans weren't gracious at all. And we do it this way. Darn it, why don't you learn? Or they would speak louder because they get frustrated that they didn't understand them. But take the time to understand others, and having that graciousness, that to me was enhanced my life tremendously. Because I met other people and formed relationships with other people that I learned a lot from.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but better food, better wine. It was graciousness that endured. And you don't have to have a ton of money to enjoy really good food and good wine. You really don't, because it's not by price. People think it's I pay more for this. And no. I get it for self, the ability to do it of self. And if you're willing to do some of your own cooking and do some of your own investigating and be gracious with yourself, with your own palate, you could have a very high quality of life. But that's being gracious with the self, being gracious with other people. That, I'm not, I want to do that. I believe in that. I try to do that, but I don't, I have to work at it every day.
Right. We'll take a quick break. I want to check to make sure everything's working good.
Okay.
What's her meeting today?
Women's club.
What do they talk about?
They are a wide variety. They try to, but it's mostly older women that try to do things for the community.
Okay.
They're a service club throughout the country, but Heartland was kind of literally dying. They were pretty old.
Oh God.
So she got in about 3 years ago. Somebody had knew her, and she's almost doubled. She was last year was membership and almost doubled their membership.
Oh wow.
Inviting her friends, inviting just other people, and lowered their age quite a bit.
Huh. That's awesome.
Pushing mid-80s to now probably 70, 72.
Okay.
They're still fairly old, but I think she's brought in a lot of younger, a little bit more vibrancy. And, it's amazing that we talk about it and other things. We've both been on with leaderships on different boards, but working with people that are not that many years older than us, but there's even a generation gap among us.
Really?
Among older people, huge. And it depends. And what you see at this age is learning has made a huge difference. Not just educational attainment, but where did you stop your own progress in life?
Yeah.
Some people, well, when I was young, I'm going, and they're a year older than I am. And I'm like going, it's the last thing I'm going to say is I'm going to talk about it. Yeah. When I learned, we learned a lot, but what can we use today? This whole, I want to go backwards type of thing. And when we were young, it should have been like that. No, you got to deal with it, what it is, and the technology and all the capabilities that we have. But how do we enhance that? So how do we communicate with people that are younger with us and say, like we were talking about earlier, like I said, okay, if I get young people rather than shout to the rooftops every time about climate change, well, what do we have to do to get together, plant some trees, clean up some garbage, make sure the rivers flow well? Let's, do it a little bit at a time, and day to day we'll make better progress. We'll all learn something together and enhance the environment.
Yeah. Having to do with that, what would you say is like a turning point? I know it's kind of like a personal decision between giving up on something and trying something new or pushing that extra mile that you are like in a stuck point kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. A lot of it is that when I found myself in a stuck point with other people, I always would go back and go, all right, again, where are they coming from? Are they saying things, that, what's the perspective? You get, if you want to ever get in conversations with people, religion is one of those stuck, you get a lot of stuck points on, okay? And then you realize there's, if you could actually truly believe in a greater good, I guess, it's not a right or wrong, it's more of a, okay, interesting perspective. So I think you have to do the same thing with yourself. If you get a stuck point, it's, what am I stuck on? And am I stuck on, again, better question. Is there somebody else that has some expertise? What else, what have I not thought of? And that's usually the most thing, is that we get stuck because we haven't really gone, we're kind of narrow. So we get it out to at least 180 and, other perspectives or other way to look at things.
Yeah.
Now, one of the best questions is, rather than ask somebody else, if you can ask yourself to actually look at this and honestly ask a more objective question into it, because you'll start discovering your own biases, your own prejudices, and that's in order to really work with others. I think in that manner, what are yours? And when I've confronted mine, it was like, oh, okay. Most, like my wife, other people, I don't have the quote unquote normal prejudices about people, place, or things, because that's just, I don't believe in those. I believe we're one human race. We should all be able to work together and get along. More of the brain than all the other things that we differentiate ourselves. However, I do, and you asked it earlier, when it comes to helping yourself get over cancer, get through cancer or other diseases, you have to realize that's a matter of the self. You've got to do some work to it. whether it's getting a second or third opinion on your disease, whether it's enhancing your physical activity or your diet, being a little more self-conscious about walking a bit more, doing that exercise or whatever it is. Those are all, okay, what stops us? And that self-reflection sometimes, like for me, it was like, okay, I can be critical of people who don't do that part of it. Why are they eating like that? Why are they, why are they, okay, well, that's, and you look at people and you go, okay. And in my mind, sometimes just because they don't show signs of taking care of themselves physically, I diminish their capability sometimes of what they do. So I've had to deal with that. And once I learn to back off that and not look at them because they're, not taking care of themselves as well as I think they should. My own judgment. But I'm looking at it going, okay, I learn to ask better questions and be curious and learn to utilize them as a person. It's just, to get back to, all right, they got a brain and a personality, and that's what we'll concentrate on.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm curious to learn about like the process of getting like a bill in place or like stuff like that.
Well, ordinances generally come from, we can produce them at the county board level, but a lot of them come because, I'll take what I talked about earlier, land use in this county. They'll come from different towns or villages or people that want to change some zoning or change, add to a park or whatever. So then that's how it comes to, in our case, administration. They start writing it. We have subject matter experts usually in every phase of it. We just, in mental health, let's say we need to change how we're administrating it. We had a big change and we got a word on it to simplify this as best as I can. So if somebody had a mental health issue and they were causing a challenge in a household or in a building, we would send the police right there without necessarily having all the mental health training. Okay, but they were turning violent, so it was like, okay, we would then treat them like anything else, try to subdue them, arrest them, get them to jail, and then try them. And well, during that time, is that the best treatment for people?
Right.
Then once we train our officers and our sheriff's deputies, okay, then if they were declared that it was a mental health issue, again, they weren't always trained to deal with that, and dealing with in our jail was not always the best way. So how do we change that? So we had people that analyzed that, people with some expertise, and we came up with ordinances, grants to let's utilize people that are really trained in dealing with mental health people and get them to the same with the deputies or with the police officers. And that proved beneficial to the point now where we actually have people that are well-trained that will go to some, if there's not violence involved, and do those calls without always having the police officer or sheriff's deputy involved. Or they take a background to it, make sure everything's safe, and let these people do their job, calm the situation down, and get this person the treatment they need outside of our jail system.
Okay.
So that took ordinances that had to be written. We had to approve it from the county board standpoint in terms of grant. Then if we want to further along, do we want to pay for this? But we needed the data. So we got the grant. People had to go get that. We had to prove that that would be the way to do it. Get one person embedded and then go and build it up from there. And were people all in agreement on that? No. Because we were changing how things were done, and there are people that think law and order or public safety is all about just throwing people in jail. Well, that's not safety. And public safety, when you have that as part of your regimen, and we certainly want to do that, you have to realize all of the parts of the pantheon of public safety and what it means. Food inspection, restaurant inspection, roads not being too potholed, being plowed correctly. And again, making sure that people that have mental health issues are dealt with in a way that we can actually improve them so they don't become a continuous problem. And that's costly, first of all, to taxpayers. Secondly, repeat offenders that are mental health, strictly mental health, it's like, is there a better way? And we now know there is. Secondly, we have people who are using expertise. We're utilizing expertise better. We're not having police officers or deputies do all the writing or trying to come up with, or, we're having them go out and be back on patrol and letting these people take care of getting these people the right help or getting the right stay. Secondly, we just did a dedication in December where we're going to be utilizing part of our mental health center better for overnight stays.
Okay.
So for some 1, 2, or 3 nights, so we could at least stabilize the person, really get a better evaluation, and understand next best course of treatment. And we know now with mental health, it's a treatment-related manner, and treatment doesn't mean jail time.
Right.
It means how do we provide the right environment, and sometimes it's safety from themselves or from others, harm from others. And we need to continue to improve on that. So that will be continuous study, expertise, writing an ordinance, putting it in. So that's the way. And so all we're dealing with is how do we deal with the issues that are in front of us? And that's what laws are. And that's what ordinances are in the county standpoint. They're laws. They're basically, we will do it this way. This is the procedure. We will make sure that, what we try to do like the county is we monitor what we call our pavement standard. And when pavement degrades, as you were talking about earlier, when pavement degrades, it's bad for the cars, it's bad for the roads, our drive. So we try to keep our pavement level at a certain level. Well, that comes through, and that becomes, this is where we'd like to see it. We haven't, we monitor it as a county board, and as the county, they try to adhere to it, but there's fluctuation to it based on what's being spent on it. So then we're dealing with the state. Could we get more transportation aids, which they have the capability of doing, so we maintain our pavement better? And what that does is that's actually a savings because you're doing less road repair.
Right.
You maintain at a higher level, keep it at a higher level, so it's less maintenance to cars, it's better travel, it's better for commerce, it's better in so many ways. It's a true investment. So then we have to work with the state to say, transportation aids. Well, the state says, yeah, but we're losing money now in our transportation fund because electric cars are not paying the same. So now they're dealing with, how will we fund that? So that's the consistency. So you're always proving either an ordinance or improving an ordinance locally or at the state level to make things better.
Okay.
But you have to realize, first of all, that things are constantly changing. Circumstances change, technology changes, so we have to change in terms of how we deal with it. And I truly believe we're getting better. That's that hope thing again.
Yeah.
So like mental health, we can treat this better. Education, we can do better. Road repair, we can do better. Jails, we can definitely do better there. Now, I would like to see us do a better job in terms of, dealing with domestic violence better. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, there's got to be better assessments, less repeat offenders. If somebody, because the word's in there, violence. Okay, so if somebody has hurt somebody else, once that's that's violence. Or if they threaten somebody else on a regular basis, or person feels. So how do we do that? There's multiple ways we can get that information. Our Women's Center in Waukesha, they take care of women who have been abused or are afraid or are, their personal safety is harmed or their children. Well, let's gather that information, find out where it is, what it is, and how to deal with it. And then what laws or ordinances can we put forth that we can reduce that amount. But those are the people then, let's focus on, is there mental health involved? But let's focus, when we look at our jail, are we utilizing our jail in such a way, our jail locally, not the prison system, but are we using our jail in the proper way? Are we getting people through, they get arrested, do they get trials, with expediency? Not that they're sitting in our jail, because that's a very big cost to taxpayers, just for the sake of sitting in our jail. And if people are nonviolent, should they just be sitting in our jail?
Yeah.
Can we get them on electronic monitors, for instance? That keeps improving all the time.
Right.
They could stay at their jobs, keep paying their child support, whatever it might be. Again, these are nonviolent criminals.
Right.
But there's always got to be a better way of doing things. And then how do we improve that, the aspect between our jail and if people that really do need to go to prison, how do we smooth that out?
Gotcha.
Obviously we had a hiccup with COVID, and we're back to how to make that work better. But we got our prison system needs to work better too. And what are we doing? Are we being, for people that violate parole, are they doing it violently or are they doing it non-violently? And we need to have two differentiations there, so that we don't take people out of the workforce that are non-violent.
Gotcha.
So again, we have the capability, we have the ability to do that structure. It does cost money, but that to me is a great investment in tax dollars.
Yeah. So do the problems get brought up to you from like outside sources, or is it more so inside?
Outside sources, as well as it's a combination.
Yeah.
The board, we can bring things up that are in need in your own communities.
Okay.
You need to bring those forward and work with administration, do the study. Is this worthy of an ordinance or of a change or of investment? A lot of our roads and projects get changed that way. Other things if we have police forces that are tying up too many resources and take care of mental health, well, we hear that and we try to make that change.
Yeah. So how do you guys like stay on track and stay on one topic kind of thing and not get overwhelmed? Because it sounds like there's so many things that need to be innovated to.
Yeah, again, you do a bit at a time. The county board meets once a month. So in our case, you deal with the ordinances. Some months are slower than others. Other months are heavier than others. And again, it's just it's about what's going on around us. So, but we're cognizant of what we can handle and not handle. And some things, budgets are a big thing. Is how do we budget properly within all the structure that we have? Budget well in land use and public works and the court system, the jail, the sheriff's deputies. Those are all tough budgets, and we do a lot. Work of that from probably June through November. November is when we vote on the budget. We also separate in this county really well our operating budgets from our capital investments, and we put our capital investments out 5 years, and we save for them, and we put 20% down, and we bond correctly for them so that we can handle those. And they're not always easy either, because sometimes they spike right up, so we have to borrow a little bit more, or we have to find other ways of funding them without shortchanging one or another. And so that balance, that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of things that we work on. Some of that takes behind the scenes. Okay, why are we doing this? I'm investing this. All right, this works. And some of it is a matter of having good department heads who understand they're here for everybody, and that it takes handling a budget. It's like you're asking, handling a budget, just that something, quote unquote, that's simple. The difference between managing and leadership shows up there.
Yeah.
Managing is, they manage the budget. I did this, and I can manage to do that. And then we get by. Leadership in those areas is we can make a better investment here, could save us long term. Or if we do this instead of that, or we put personnel, people are, how do we deploy our people in the best way possible? How do we get the best people to do this? Changing criteria of the people we hire, what kind of expertise. We found that master's level people in dealing with the mental health people, mental health cases, that was a better, so once you up that, well, then you have to upgrade your salary structure. Again, there's always that balance.
Yeah.
You upgrade the salary, you put that salary there, well, then that means somebody over here, can we afford to pay them?
Right.
Well, you were asking the question. We are utilizing more automation. we are saving money using better technology in terms of lighting, electricity, use of power, use of buildings, use of land. Those all, you can reduce your costs as well. So where do you reduce? Where do you enhance? That's part of the decision making.
Yeah.
Good leadership is having being able to look out, being able to work together, not always in animosity. Some people believe that the board should always be fighting the administration, and I believe we should be questioning them, not necessarily, but also understanding, not necessarily always fighting, but questioning. Two different things, but doing it with respect and doing it without micromanaging, but asking the right questions. Are we doing this the best way? And then evaluating the results, which we do. We audit, we look at ways, is this the best possible way? And where can we enhance our operations to make it better?
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, let's wrap it up with these 5 questions that I have written down here.
Okay.
Just some quick ones. I call it the speed cast. So we just 5 questions, super random questions, but fun ones to end with. Right. So what was your dream job growing up?
Oh, growing up. Oh, that's I would have said probably football coach.
Okay, that's what you had written down in your pictures and elementary school and stuff.
I wanted to play and then coach. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. What's your favorite hobby?
Ooh, I would say favorite overall is probably golfing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite course around here? Second question that's not on here, but
Nagawaki.
Okay.
It's a county course, and I worked hard to that we're enhancing it, but I also enjoy it. It's got a wide variety, great scenery, and enough challenges. It's fun to play, and for all ages and all types of. As I age, you become hit it a little bit less, so you can adjust for that.
Okay, I've never played there. I've driven past it a million times. I'm always on Pewaukee Lake for the wake surf lessons. I drive right past it, so
it's always crowded.
Yeah,
it's well taken care of for the amount of play it gets, but it stays in fairly good shape for the amount of play it gets.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite quote?
Ooh, well, okay. One probably I've utilized the most is, and it's always where it really is attributed to, but I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it. To me, that's the essence of being American.
Right. What's your this question about kind of your legacy? Who or how would you like to be remembered?
As somebody who really gave a damn about others.
I like that. And last question, we'll wrap it up with if a young person were to come up to you and they want to start a business or are looking to find their passion in life, what would your advice be for them?
Well, one, truly research it and understand it may not be your first viewpoint. Okay. Part of your passion in life is what's going to challenge you on a day-to-day basis. And if it looks like it's too easy, it won't challenge you and it won't be a passion.
Very interesting. I like that. All right. Well, thanks for doing the podcast and thanks for sharing all this inspiration and all your knowledge and experiences with us.
Well, you're welcome. I did enjoy this quite a bit. And if there's some other more in-depth subject matter ever, let me know. But this was fun. You did a great job, and thanks for your consistency.
Awesome.
Keep at it, and I wish you the best luck in the future. Keep at it.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
That was super fun.